Right, now, when it comes to that theme, children, uh, we can see this conflicting attitudes right now. This R.K. Narayan's The Winter of Sweets is a text which provides a variety of insights regarding conflict in society, children, right? Among them, the conflict between tradition and modernity is considered to be a major theme of the novel, right? Which is portrayed through the relationship between Jagan and Mali, right? Novel's major characters, right? The following essay analyzes some important instances where clashes that occur between Jagan and Mali with regards to their contrasting attitudes on Indian culture, right? Business matters and marriage, which can be considered as symbolic reflections of the conflict between tradition and modernity. Jagan, the protagonist of the story, is a traditional Indian writer who rejects the Western culture, whereas Mali accepts the Western culture, abandoning the Indian culture, right? Although he is an Indian citizen, right? The opposing attitudes of Jagan and Mali on Indian culture gives rise for the occurrence of a conflict between tradition and modernity, right? Mali's adaptation to Western culture begins with his migration to America, right? Without Jagan's permission, right? Since Jagan dislikes Western culture, he is disappointed with Mali's migration to America, creating a conflict between father and the son, right? This conflict is further developed after Jagan receives a blue airmail letter from Mali who mentions that he has got used to eating beef as a Western cultural practice, right? Now you see erosion of certain values, right? Because now eating beef, of course, really, it's really a kind of a problem for this Indian Hindu culture, right? Because usually you are not supposed to have that type of thing in India, right? Because now you know that they worship Madu Pongal, right? Because they really consider about this ox, cows like that, right? I've taken to eating beef, but and I don't think I'm any worse for it, right? Mali also thinks why not slaughter cows which wander in the streets, right? Right. Reading this, Jagan becomes so outraged and annoyed. Indians respect cows as sacred animals, right? Therefore, slaughtering a cow is considered a deadly sin, right? According to their holy scriptures, right? With reference to above example, it is clear how Jagan's traditional behaviors contrast with Mali's modern cultural practices, right? Therefore, the conflict between tradition and modernity is highlighted through Jagan's and Mali's relationship. From Jagan's and Mali's relationship, always it's a conflicting situation, children, right? The conflict between tradition and modernity is further highlighted through the incompatible nature of Jagan and Mali on business matters. Jagan is displayed as a traditional vendor of sweets. Mali illustrates that uh, figure of a modern businessman through his industry of manufacturing story writing machines, right? A clash originates between father and the son when Mali requests an amount of $50,000 from Jagan to commence his business, right? However, Jagan ignores and rejects his son's request and suggests him to continue the work of his sweet shop, right? But Mali disagrees with it, saying that I have better plans than to be a vendor of sweets, right? Thus, Mali at once spurned Jagan with no reason by hurting Jagan's hopes as a traditional father. His forceful denial to be a vendor of sweets articulates his repugnance to be a traditional businessman as his which further highlights his acceptance of modernity. It seems that Jagan's reluctance to provide financial assistance to Mali to start his business of manufacturing story writing machines conveys his detestation to accept modernity, although he aims to hand over his sweet shops to Mali. Accordingly, the conflict of thoughts between Jagan as a traditional businessman and Mali as a modern businessman illustrate the conflict between tradition and modernity. Another instance of the novel which explores the theme of conflict between tradition and modernity is the dissimilarity between marriage lives of Mali and Grace. It is clear that marriage of Mali and Grace is just a living together, which would highlight, which would reflect the nature of modern marriages, right? For Jagan, it is a tainted relationship. Jagan comes to know that his son is married only when he goes to the railway station to pick Mali. He becomes so bewildered after Mali introduced Grace to him, saying that this is Grace. We are married. Grace, my dad. Mali's informal introduction of Grace to Jagan seems to have made Jagan so worried about Mali. After the death of Mali's mother, Mali was brought up by Jagan, playing both the roles of a mother and a father. Therefore, he would have expected in proposing an Indian bride to Mali by introducing, as it is a duty of parents according to Indian culture. Jagan's above idea is highlighted through his marriage with Ambika. From the moment of proposing Ambika to Jagan, everything of the marriage was done systematically by Jagan's and Ambika's parents. Ambika was not even allowed to meet Jagan outside before their marriage as a cultural gesture. In contrast, Mali ignores consulting his father in marriage. With reference to this example, the conflict between tradition and modernity can be highlighted, children, right? Thus, the above analysis focuses how the clashes between Jagan and Mali in relation to their attitudes on Indian culture, business matters, and marriages lives in the novel becomes a symbolic reflections of the conflict between tradition and modernity, a major theme of the novel. Now you need to highlight now several times the clashes. The word is repeated in the answer, children, right? And when we are answering the question also, we have the quotations and all, right? So these are some of the key concerns when we are practicing this type of a question at the examination, right? So we need to understand the right example at the right time to produce when we are writing I mean, this type of an argumentative essay, right? Now, I think you have a little bit of good idea about this essay, so we'll proceed into discussion of the next essay topic in the next day class. So until that, have a nice time. So we'll meet in another session. Then bye and good night, children.